Let's see here. Dylan is momentum. Am I missing anybody over here? No. And then we're going to swing over here, and Kelly has a report for ladies ministry. Joe for men's ministry. Am I missing anybody over here? Okay, we'll go in that order. Okay, and then Pastor Chris has a report, but he's down with the children, and his report was about children. So we'll get it later. But Pastor Dom, go ahead.
Well, the two areas we did make note of. The prime timers, we had 3 events. And this last year, we averaged about 16 in attendance. And they were appreciated. They seem to be. And then as far as, we did not tally up the amount of meal preparation we did, but there were quite a few through the year as far as soliciting provide those meals, and the church family was very, very generous with that. So that's all.
Amen. All right, Danielle.
In the fall of 2022, the Women of the Word Ladies Bible Study began. Study met 11 weeks from the beginning of September through the beginning of November, and averaged 10 ladies each week. Since FBC had a considerable growth of church attenders coming from town, Bible study decided to accommodate those who come from Ogden at 2 different locations, alternating from town to valley each week. We met at the Van Langenberg's house for the town week and the Lamberts for the valley. Our final week of study was a group dinner where each lady brought food to share. There were no ladies Bible study in spring of 2022 since that was the final 12 weeks.
Amen. And remind me of the book you're going through now.
Cultural counterfeits.
Cultural Counterfeits. And
What we did in the fall?
no. What you're doing right now. And now we've got kind of we're going in the evening. They're going to both town and here, and then there's a morning one, morning time study for those ladies who don't want to travel at night and that sort of thing. No, I'm just filling in. Okay, Dylan.
In 2022, the Momentum Group had 2 weekly Bible studies, one in the spring and one in the fall, had an average of 7 attendees. In the spring of 2022, Momentum studied church membership, what makes it necessary, how it works, and how it serves both the individual and the church body. In the fall, Momentum studied the book of Ecclesiastes and held a Christmas party in the month of December. We greatly appreciate the leadership of Ben and Noble Mack in the first half of the year, and also Andrew Hester's hard work in making our weekly studies in the second half. In 2023, we look forward to studying more of God's Word and continuing to reach out to those that are.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Let's go this way. Now, who's over here? Is it Kelly? Kelly, go ahead and tell us about the women's ministries.
The activity portion. In 2022, the women of the FBC had 5 events with an average of 15 ladies in attendance. It was a blessing to have Megan, Lindsay, and Betty join Amy and me on the ladies' activities committee. A highlight of the year was being able to hold our spring tea, since 2019 was the last year we were able to have the tea. There were about 50 women and girls in attendance for that. In 2023, we are excited to have Erin join the committee. We met last month and have started planning the 5 activities for Lady Celebration.
That's wonderful. 50 for the tea. That's pretty good. Okay. Joe, why don't you tell us about men's ministry?
Organizationally, Dylan and Dirk and I form a committee to schedule events, and the elders take the lead on men's Bible studies. In 2022, the men of FBC had a busy year as we put many hours into the Parsons project. And although we had fewer events this past year due to our work days, we had great attendance at the Cross Country Ski Day, the Fellowship Breakfast, and the Nerd Tour. And we also had 2 bachelor parties here at the church for David Leroy and Benjamin Thomas. In the fall of this past year, we also met weekly over coffee to learn about a variety of Bible study resources from Pastor Greg. And we are excited for another round of men's Bible studies this spring, as well as a fuller calendar of events as we anticipate completion of the Parsons.
Amen. That's good. Did I leave anybody out? Did I leave anybody out? Okay, don't think so. All right, as far as overall church things are concerned, a few things that I've been very encouraged about over the last year. I've been very encouraged with our influx of, we've had a lot of new people coming, okay? And over the last 2 years, we've seen quite the influx of new people. what I observed is that COVID sort of killed the one-time-a-year visitor. Our attendance numbers for Easter and Christmas Eve service, which tend to draw those sort of once-a-year attendees, has been low. On the flip side of that, though, and I don't exactly know what all to attribute to this, on the flip side of that, we've been getting a pretty steady flow of visitors who are a little bit more serious about looking for a church home. We've been seeing them from North Ogden. We've been seeing people that have moved up here to the valley. There's been all sorts of different sources of that influx of good visitors, and several of them have stuck. I'm told that Awana right now has about 20, consistently over 20 kids attending, not Awana, Adventure Club, consistently over 20 kids attending, and a lot of them are kids from the valley, kids from elsewhere, and I think that's speaking to the sort of reach that we've been able to manage. Right now, our geographical reach is wider than it's ever been. We're reaching out over into town, we're reaching all the way across the valley, whereas in past years, our geographical footprint has been a little smaller, but it's starting to stretch a little bit, which is encouraging. I've been very encouraged by the amount of giving. We're going to cover the financial reports here in a little bit, and the giving has been very strong, the strongest that we've seen since I've been the pastor here. A lot of that's attributed to inflation. You know, you stay in one place for 13 years, and that doesn't buy what it bought 13 years ago. But still, the giving has been very strong, and it was fun to budget this year because we were budgeting from extra, and that's been really encouraging. I was very much encouraged by the men's Wednesday morning study. We had a lot of guys showing up for that, and it told me that there was a real need being met and a need being expressed. And we are eager to start that back up here in a couple weeks. We're going to resume our Wednesday morning fellowship time. And this time, instead of me sharing resources, one of our guys is going to bring a little challenge. And so that's going to be a real encouragement. I've also been very encouraged with the amount of participation church-wide in the Parsonage Project. And we're going to talk more about that again, and we've been talking to you about it through the year. I personally have been blown away by the amount of sacrifice that our folks have been going to. The financial sacrifice, the time sacrifice has been probably the most impressive thing. There's a lot of folks who are doing a lot of things. There's one day that stands out in my memory. I was working alongside a guy out here. We built the platform, and we were framing up the walls. And in eternity, we will know whose fault it was. The guys there have blamed me. I still don't think it was me, but you know, maybe God will allow full vindication of them or me, one or the other. Well, the entire back length of the wall, if you can see that through the window, we were supposed to build it in sections and stand it up in sections and then tack it together. But what happened was this whole wall of 2x6 framing got put together all in one piece. And we realized we did not have the manpower to raise it with the people who were there. And we started making phone calls frantically. And how many people did we have show up to help us push? Was it about 30 people showed up? It was maybe less than that or more? Okay, less than that? Okay, we had 18, 20 people show up to help us lift this wall. And it was just really heartening to see, like we just had to put out this like emergency call, we got to lift this wall, and all these people showed up to help us lift it. And that's been sort of that's an example of the sort of thing I've been seeing over and over again. People chipping in to help meals for our teams, all sorts of things. It's just been so encouraging. And I know Pastor Chris has mentioned this. There's a little bit of regret that the project is coming to an end because it has been so much fun. And I'm happy to wrap it up. I want to get it done, but it has been a lot of fun. And there will be some regret that we don't get that constant interaction. This year, what I want to make 2023 about is two things. I want to make it about prayer, and I want to make it about rest. Okay? In 2021, we made one of our themes resting. And then in 2022, we're like, well, we got this parsonage to build. We rested. Now it's time to work. You might remember that was a big push. We got to get this project done. We don't want this project to linger on. Well, we've done the work, almost. We're close. We've done the bulk of it. Let's finish the project off. And then really, truly, I want our church to focus on taking a step back from busyness in the schedule and focusing on each other, focusing on resting a little bit, personal connections with each other, building those up, and taking a step back from the busyness of the schedule, families focusing on each other, and so forth. So we're going to be talking a lot about prayer in this coming year and cultivating a meaningful and intimate prayer life. And then I feel very strongly that we need to, as a church body, build some respite into the schedule after what has been a very busy year, very productive and very good. But we do need to, as a family, kind of refocus, as a church family, refocus on all of those family connections. So those are the goals for the year. Finish the project, and then rejoice in the Lord and focus on each other for the rest of this year moving forward. We're hoping to have the Penningtons into the parsonage. We've been saying March 1. I'm holding out hope that it's March 1, okay? It might have to wait a little bit, but hopefully no later than April 1. And I don't want to hear any jokes about April Fool's Day. We're putting a moratorium on those jokes. Do I have a motion for that? I'm teasing. Okay. So that's the reports for the year. Do I have a motion to accept the reports as they've been given? Pastor Dom, and a second for Ben. All in favor of accepting those reports, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, it has come time to to make some motions regarding our leadership. Ben Mack has served faithfully over the course of 3 years, and in a little bit here we're going to make a motion to allow him to cycle off the deacon board as our Constitution calls for. As you're aware, we nominated 2 deacons for this year, in part because of that increasing geographical reach we talked about, also in part because we've got a parsonage now, and that essentially doubles our maintenance needs. And so we really wanted to bring 2 deacons on board to help spread that work a little more evenly. As we notified you a few weeks ago, the people that were nominated and approached by the elder team were Dirk Van Langenberg, and where's my other one? Oh, Andrew Kester. He had to run out for his snow removal. It's still coming down sideways, so Andrew gets to make a little money while we talk about him. Okay, so at this time we'd like Dirk and his family to leave and Lindsay to leave our meeting so that we can talk about you behind your back. You can stay here. That's fine. That's not going to bother anybody. Okay. Before we entertain discussion, do I have a motion for these 3 things? To have Ben Mack cycle off of our deacon board, to bring Dirk Van Langenberg aboard as a deacon, and to bring Andrew Kester aboard as a deacon. Do I have a motion? Elaine motions and Lakin seconds. Okay. Now we'll just have some discussion if you would like to have it. We're going to pass out these ballots, by the way. And so if I could have Pastor Dom and Nathan pass out these ballots. We always count our deacons. We always do ballot votes for our deacons. And just a reminder, the way that we affirm deacons is not to say, it's not a vote in the American democratic sense. What we're doing is it's kind of a final check, like I believe that these men, because you've already nominated them, and it's sort of a final check, a final say yay or nay, I believe that they're qualified to serve. And if we believe they're qualified to serve, we'll go ahead and take the vote on bringing them on as deacon and elder, or deacons, okay? Okay. Is there anybody that has any discussion about bringing Dirk and Andrew aboard? I'm personally excited about both of them. Andrew's he's been here faithful, and he's a really faithful guy, hard worker. He's an effective teacher, and he's taught several times. He's put in a lot of time already with Momentum and other types of activities, other types of ministries, and he's already actively serving. Dirk and Christy were church leaders in California before they came here. They served commendably at their church in California. The Lord brought them here. Their first little bit here, they lived way out in Roy, and they would still take the drive all the way here. Dirk's been very faithful. He was in my small group that I led, and I was impressed with his wisdom and skill. And he's a godly man, and I'm excited to have him serve if you guys see fit as well. Other discussion. I'm also happy that Dirk was nominated for He Lives Over the Divide. And I think that's important for us since we're to have a presence down in that area where we are starting to draw more people. Yes, Anna. Dependable is probably the most underrated skill, and that is Christy. She is dependable, and it's not underrated in my book. Others, yes, Tom.
I was just not so much comments about them as much as elders. It was a thrill this year for the first time we had multiple men that could serve, and that's just a combination of growth and harmony.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, well, let's go ahead and take those ballots back up again if you've already gotten them. And I'm going to have Nathan and Dom go into the back room there real quick and tally them up. And I'm going to engage in my stand-up comedy routine while we kill some time. I have a funny joke, actually, if you'd like to hear it. I've got two of them. They're both kind of dark. My humor is kind of dark. So the Super Bowl is next week, and last year there was a guy. He was sitting in a seat, and there was an empty spot, and then a guy next to him, and the guy said to this fellow, he said, "Hey, who would pay $5,000 for a Super Bowl ticket and not go?" And the guy said, "Well, actually, that was my wife's seat, but she passed away, and I couldn't find anybody to take the ticket." And he said, "What? Like one of your other family members wouldn't come to the game with you?" And he goes, "Well, they're probably all at the funeral." I think I told that one to Ben and Opal, so it's one of my new favorite jokes. So, there you go. Dad jokes. I tell dad jokes to my kids, and they think they're funny. Okay, it appears that we're unanimous. Okay, we are unanimous on the vote. So, given the fact that we're all unanimous, All in favor of having Ben step off the deacon board and bringing Andrew Kester and Dirk Van Langenberg onto our deacon board, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. It is unanimous. Okay, well, let's bring those folks back in. Ben will finish his service at the close of this meeting, and Dirk and Andrew will begin theirs at the close of this meeting. All right. Where's Christy? Is she coming? Oh, there she is. All right, it was unanimous. You guys are going to serve as deacons. Wonderful. And so thank you for being willing to serve. We're looking forward to 3 wonderful years. And so thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we now need a motion to retain all of our current officers. Now, I asked them earlier this week if they would be willing to serve in their roles yet again. I'm serving as the lead pastor and agree to continue. Chris is our associate pastor. He agrees to continue. Pastor Dom is another associate pastor. He's agreed. Nathan has agreed to remain as a deacon. I feel like Daniel has agreed to remain as a deacon. Joe has remain as the clerk. And Opal has agreed to remain as the bookkeeper, or the treasurer, I think is the technical name. And Steve has agreed to remain on as elder. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the continuance of these officers? Dylan, do I have a second? Anna? All in favor of continuing these officers, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Excellent. All right, now our kind of final perfunctory motion, reception, all that. Okay, we're getting down to the end of all the motions. We need a motion to extend the floor now to non-members, because we're going to start talking about the budget. And it's been our tradition to extend the floor to non-members once we start talking about the budget, because we realize that our non-members are also contributing, and we want to give them a voice in those discussions as well. So from one of our voting members, do I have a motion to extend the floor for comment to non-members as well? Ben, and the second, Daniel. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, excellent. So if you're a non-member and you have a question or a comment, please feel free to slip up your hand and we will extend the floor to you as well. Okay, now it is come time to review the budget. And for this, Ben Mack is going to come and take over.
Okay, I have handouts. Dirk, can you give me a hand with this, and Nathan, if you wouldn't mind. So one of these that's proposed 2023, and this is budget from last year, 2022. So, and David, did you find the, perfect. So we'll give a minute for those to be distributed here. So as Pastor Greg was talking about coming up with a budget and the extra that we had this year, or just it was interesting to budget this year, having budgeted, I think it was 2021, where we sat down. Joe, you remember sitting here trying to figure out how to make church operational with, I think about like $130,000 budget, and even then I think it was optimistically budgeted, and we're like, we'll see how this goes. So it was encouraging to see how God has blessed us this last year, last couple of years, as we'll see here. So go ahead, and I think most people have handouts. So if you want to click to the next one, David. So for 2022, our total budgeted expenses were $171,315. Total expenses were $172,883. Total income was $204,524, which leaves us with a surplus of $31,641. So, and those are, the cents are rounded off. There's a little change in there, but So we'll talk about that surplus here in a bit. And I know typically we try to stick close to the budget. We had adjusted it partway through the year when we saw some needs come up and then saw where we were sitting financially. So we were not running rampant. We were making every effort not to. And as you guys are looking over everything, any thoughts from anybody? We'll have a couple spots for questions if you guys do have questions, but I don't want to overlook anything as you guys are getting the budgets now. Anything that jumps out for 2022? Okay. You can go on the next one, David. So just kind of some trends that we noticed. Awana and curriculum, Awana being Adventure Club, but I believe the line item in the budget is Awana. Those were high because Pastor Chris was able to get this next year's curriculum on sale for I think he said 50 or 60% off. So he went ahead and bought it, and I guess that's a consistent sale. So this should be the first year or the only year that we see that kind of doubled. We basically bought curriculum twice this year, once for 2022 and then again going forward for 2023. So if that sale's a regular thing, we should only have that expense once a year now. But that's why those were higher. We also had a little over in youth group, housekeeping, worship utilities, and then pastoral ministry expenses. Things are just, they've gone up. And we all, I'm sure, are seeing that with our own personal finances. And our church is growing, so we're using more. We're here more. We have more folks in the building, which is great. So, but we use more stuff. And then Pastor Greg, because we've grown, he's spending a lot more time driving back and forth to North Ogden, throughout the valley, meeting with people more. So we gave him increases in the pastoral ministry expenses to cover that. So that's why that's a little higher. And then we also had to increase our insurance because of building the parsonage. So that should, I believe, go back down to normal this next year, or at least lower. And then we were under in our outreach, honorariums, leadership appreciation, and special activities. I think because the parsonage was a big focus this year, we didn't do as many events. We also, for one reason or another, have not had a leadership appreciation dinner in the last 3 years because people either keep getting sick or there's a pandemic or things like that happen. So, but this year we just didn't do it. It didn't line up.
We had it on the schedule, and the entire church got sick. And so we canceled it because literally nobody was well.
Yep. We've been trying. We've been trying. So, any thoughts on that? Any questions? Okay. All right, David. Here's where things sit now for on-hand finances. Checking, $22,525. Savings is $30,121. And then our Capital One, which is our emergency fund, is $25,868, which gives us a total on hand of $78,514, which again is an encouraging thing to see after a couple years ago looking at how much we dipped into emergency fund and just things going down. So it's been quite a blessing to see how we've been provided for financially. So, okay, David, I think this is a question slide, the next one. Oh, no, parsonage, okay. And Pastor Dom, I might pass questions on to you. This is just what I got. Also, real quick, so your 2022, Opal sent us the budget or the year-to-date report, and then I tried to put that into Google Drive and then print it out. And somewhere in there, things got jumbled, and I tried to put it into 3 pages. So instead of trying to print 3 pages for a number of handouts, I just printed the middle page. The first page had what we just went over for income, and then the last page was parsonage stuff. So I kind of just figured that we would cover those. If you want to see the other pages, send me an email or let me know after church, and I'll make sure that you get it. But it's nothing different than was up here. So we have brought in for the parsonage $177,706, which I believe was a lot of that was from Fellowship Bible Church, right? Which is amazing to see. Total expenses approximately, because things are always kind of, in and out, is 244,120. In the parsonage fund right now, there's about $1,500. We did vote, was it earlier this summer, I believe, to open a line of credit to continue to fund the project as needed. We have used $60,216. We have $39,784 available, and we've paid $1,500 in interest. It's ironic that those two line up. I didn't notice that earlier. So I know math-wise going through that doesn't line up, and I don't know if that's like for our total, right, where we've spent like $244,000, and then if you add the rest of, the income, then the line of credit numbers, is that because of donations? I should have asked this earlier. I'm sorry, this is very poor form of me, but.
Yeah, I have the Opal track those two.
Okay.
I think, at least on the sheet here, it says that the parsonage fund income was $88,000, but I assume that's from January to January, where we actually started.
Maybe that's it.
We started the.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the number that's in over the course of the project since we started.
Okay.
Fundraising for it, but also a reason those don't line up is because as a church, we decided to go at the church, which was supposed to be getting expenses like permits. And
Okay.
thinking it was even possible to build on the land. So that's part of the reason why those don't line up, because there's still kind of expenses.
Okay.
They didn't come out of.
Okay, and for anybody that's watching live stream, I think we're live streaming. The reason these don't line up is because that is total from the beginning. And early on, I think we spent about $5,000 kind of just checking the feasibility of a building project. So that's reflected in the total cost. That's not necessarily just building costs. So if we end up having to roll this line of credit into a loan, worst case, we're looking at about $80,000. Interest rates are, who knows where they're at any given time. But when I looked this morning, we could, if assuming that what's online is accurate, which it may not be for the time period, and that would put us for a 15-year mortgage about $677 a month. And as we're going to wrap up 2022 before we get into 2023, but that's more than covered in what we have budgeted for a parsonage mortgage. So, any questions on any of this? Questions?
We originally voted to approve a $100,000 line of credit. All things being equal, we're not going to get there.
Okay.
And so we'll come up short, which is great, but just so people know that we're a part of the previous meetings that we have pre-approved that, but we're going to come in less than that.
Okay. Yeah. So we had initially voted to open up a $100,000 line of credit. So we're not close to that. We should come in under. So, Joe.
Just had a question going back to the expenses for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Christmas gift for Jesus offering, the new model, I didn't notice that. Looking through here, I didn't know if that was separate, or if that's a category, or if that's a free expense.
Do you remember? It might be on one of the other. Yeah. Go ahead, Opal. Okay. So that would be rolled into the giving number. So that's one of those that like bridges the 2022, 2023, like brought in 2022, expended. So does that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Turkey. Mm-hmm.
So that was in the general giving, that was included in the general income, or was that what?
I believe so. Was that, so you said the birthday gift for Jesus was included in the 2022 general?
What was brought in 2022 was included in 2022,
Okay,
which was most of it. There was $300 that was in 2023 that came in after that.
okay,
That'll shade our surplus purchase.
okay. Okay. All right. Anything else on 2022? Going once. Going twice. All right. On to 2023. If you want to hit the next one, David. And the next one. So, just kind of as an overview of what you can look through the categories if you want to have them side by side, you can. But just kind of general comments on that. We've increased to accommodate the growing youth group and just additional expenses for parsonage that are going to come, having another building to maintain. We've also added $100 to leadership appreciation, and then another $500 for utilities. And then in the utilities is just to match what we've spent or try to get ahead of any increases. Reduce the outreach line because we didn't use much of it in 2022. We've also added a parsonage mortgage category, a maintenance category for the parsonage, and then an intern stipend. For additional categories, those are shown down. I don't think this has, it does have, line item. Those are just line item numbers for bookkeeping purposes. They have X's there because we haven't put them in yet and don't know what the number is. So, and I believe there was also a bookkeeper stipend. I stayed out of that because Opal's the bookkeeper. So if you have issue with that, take it up with any of the deacons or elders, not me. So. Our total proposed budget for the year is $183,667, and then which is under what we brought in for 2022, and we've decided that we'll just address any overages or additional income, not an overage, any surplus income at each quarterly business meeting and decide whether we want to put it on the parsonage or use it for something else. So we just didn't want to tie anything up that could limit us later. So does anybody have anything that jumps out? What's the next one, David? Okay, you go back to the first one. Yeah.
Your number up there does not match.
It doesn't?
$1,500.
I thought I checked all this stuff. Apparently not. Yeah, go by what's on the sheet. Go by what's on the sheet, which is good because it's a little bit less. But, yeah. So don't pay attention to that proposed budget number. But any questions on? Yeah, Joe.
So we're discussing over here the new category, intern stipend.
Mm-hmm.
We have an intern in mind, or that's just something we're regularly adding for?
We do, right? You said
We
there's.
have an intern on tap to come here. His name is Andrew Flecker. Super great kid. He's from New Hampshire. He's from the church that sent their youth group out this last year to help with the soccer camp. And he's considering making Utah a long-term ministry staff after he graduates. And this internship will kind of go toward giving him a vision of he would like it here.
So for anybody at home.
We calculated that. Pastor Greg asked for $100 to $150 a week while he was here for gas and food. So we basically calculated that off $150 a week for 8 weeks, $100 a week for 12 weeks, depending on how long he's here.
So for anybody online, that's between 8. You just said 8 and 8 to 12 weeks for an intern that is scheduled to come out this summer. So. Anything else? Mhm.
Parsonage utilities, will that come out of the utilities line item or parsonage maintenance?
So I believe the utilities are covered by Pastor Chris, right?
Yes, we're gonna have the utilities billed to Pennington's.
Okay.
Associated pastoral health and
Yeah. This is all very intertwined, so
He'll get a
Yeah.
pastoral, he will get he'll get pastoral housing so that can be tax deductible, and he'll have to pay it, and that will help him with tax advantages.
okay.
We're anticipating staying under the water minimum still because the water is connected to the water bill. Should stay the same since we're not using our call area for irrigation.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the items for the 2023 budget or amounts or anything for 2023? Okay. The next slide is proposed uses for that surplus, and like Nathan said, somewhere in there it was the birthday gift for Jesus offering that was used to cover the baker's bathroom remodel. So, so there'll be about $5,000 less than what's shown right now. So right about $2,600 or $640 something. These are proposed things. We haven't done anything yet except for a snow blower, which if you've used the church snow blower anytime in the last couple of years, it needs to be retired. So Nathan did go ahead and purchase a new snow blower for about $1,200. But other than that, that's all that we have done. We're proposing to use $5,000 of that for landscaping around the parsonage. Put about $12,000 in the emergency fund, and then maybe about $2,000 for some tech upgrades that we haven't quite identified yet. There's kind of a list of things that might be nice, but we haven't really gone into detail on that because we weren't sure what would be approved. But and then there's that last one we'll talk about here in a minute. And then anything remaining, potentially putting that on the line of credit. So any thoughts or discussion on these just what could be done? We felt like there were a lot of things that could be done and that would be good to do, but we didn't want to tie up anything. We didn't want to limit ourselves if we could use this for a ministry purpose or if we felt that it was best to try to put as much as we could towards the parsonage, but. Mm-hmm. Nathan.
Comment really quick on the emergency fund. We've always operated as a church to try to have 3 to 6 months of funds on hand in case of emergency, just like you would your personal finances. With the growth of the budget, obviously those 3 to 6 months cost more to fund the church for that period of time. So we had just over $25,000, I think, in our emergency fund. That's no longer 3 months worth of income for our church. So that's part of why we wanted to move some of that into our savings for that purpose.
Okay. Any thoughts, comments, suggestions? Yes, David.
So the parsonage debt is pretty much still debt on the church, right?
It is still debt on the church, yes. It would be the church paying a mortgage, essentially, which is shown in, we've got our parsonage mortgage line item in there, but it is, yeah.
For those who may not be in the know, Ben,
Mhm.
that if, depending on where we land, it's no different than we've been paying $750 rent for the Penningtons where they rent. And our goal was to not supersede that
Mhm.
in a mortgage, if indeed God would be pleased to do that. So, yeah.
Okay. yeah, so as Pastor Dom said, we're already paying $750 a month for rent, so, which would not, that mortgage number would almost, I don't know how much we'd have to go up, or interest rates would have to go up to hit that $750 a month for a mortgage payment, but I don't imagine we'd get close to it, so. Any thoughts? I don't want to skip ahead and skip anybody's input, but I also don't want to stare awkwardly at everybody for too long.
We don't have the remaining, if you don't want to do all the math, the remaining amount to the parsonage line of credit would be a little over 11,000 with those proposed surplus expenses. So we were talking about applying that in, just moving that into the parsonage fund to allow us to keep the mortgage down as much as possible, even if we can do those other surplus projects.
You're saying which? The,
There would be 11
oh,
left over, and we were talking about moving that to lower the mortgage even more.
yes,
We
except
may
for
wanna change that to, I think,
the 5,000,
the bathroom remodel.
yeah.
So it would be 5,000, maybe a little bit less. To do, you had a little more firm numbers on the bathroom remodel at this point, right?
It came in right, just barely under, I think.
Yeah. Well, our goal was to raise 5, we raised 49.30, and we're gonna be under that in expenses.
Okay. So whatever's remaining would be applied to the parsonage loan.
5 to the bathroom remodel, put an extra 6 towards the house.
Okay, so. All right, and I mean, none of this stuff has to be voted on. I think the only thing we would need to vote on would be like indebting ourselves, which is why we had the business meeting about the line of credit. We just, as deacons and elders, wanted to present this towards the congregation and see what input there was, and if there was any questions, or if anybody felt that some of this would be better spent in other places. But yeah, okay. So at this point, if the Ganinos, both younger and older, would like to step out of the room, we're going to talk about them.
For the record, Pastor Dom and Nathan are not happy about what's about to happen. But as a leadership team, we feel very strongly that something needs to be talked about. We're going to name names. All right. Well, I think everybody who's done anything up at the parsonage is aware of the vital role that Nathan has played. Pastor Dom, he's one of our pastors. He's sort of the head of the project. His sacrifice has been profound. I'm never up there when he's not already there. I've tried to beat him up there a couple times and I can't. His know-how and expertise is seems like he knows his stuff. He really knows his stuff. I've been impressed to no end with Nathan's knowledge and skill base and his know-how, and this project would not be off the ground without those two. That is not hyperbole. For those of you who've been involved with the project, you know how much time Nathan and Dom have invested in the project, and by extension, how much their wives have sacrificed, and in the case of Nathan and Kelly, how much their boys have sacrificed. I think it's safe to say that Nathan has been there every Saturday this year, working 9 to 5 up there every Saturday. He gets every other Friday off, and he's been there every other Friday off working. He's been up there on evenings, working away, none of it compensated. We just feel like we should try to do something for them as a thank you for the sacrifice that they've been making. So Pastor Chris and I went behind Nathan and Dom's backs, okay? And we did a little research, and Pastor Dom is very insistent. He doesn't want money and he doesn't want tools, okay? And I said, that's fine. We'll get you something that doesn't involve those. He would be more than happy if we gave him a bunch of Olive Garden gift cards, okay, which is not acceptable. We talked with Kelly, and one thing, and this is just an idea, but this was the idea that as a leadership team we all liked. What did we take from, actually we didn't take it from him. Nathan and Kelly would be the first to say they gave it to the Lord. But what did Nathan and Kelly give to the Lord? But family time, you know? And they gave a lot of it to the Lord. And we think there's a way to give them some meaningful family time back, okay? Nathan and Kelly would like to go to Disneyland, the one in California. Is that Disneyland or Disney World? Disneyland. I had Kelly do some research, and we could get them a to the nines vacation in Disneyland for $3,500. Okay, that's park passes, travel. Yeah, their flights would be covered, and that would get everything for a week at the resorts. And I talked with Dom and Elaine. I didn't talk with Dom. I talked with Elaine. What they would really like, what Dom I think would really like too, is they just want to spend some time with friends, some lifelong friends that they have in Wisconsin and Michigan. And they'd like basically 3 flights, 3 one-ways apiece, to go stay with a fellow named Andy. How many of you met Andy while he was here? He did a lot of the framing for us over here. They have a lake house in Wisconsin, and like to go and spend a week with them at the lake in Wisconsin. I asked him, I said, would you like to drive around in like a convertible or something? We can rent you something nice. And Elaine goes, oh, no. I'd like to see Dom drive around in a convertible, like with his head in the wind. But, you know, and then they would take that and then fly to Michigan and fly home. And so I would like to give them a substantial thank you gift. I'm not saying we have to fund any of that or all of it, but those are sort of the ideas that we'd compiled. They've given to the Lord family time, and I think it would be appropriate for us to try to finance back to them some meaningful family time, especially for Nathan and Kelly, who have young children, and they gave so much. So, any discussion? I'm of the opinion, and Matthew, go ahead. I saw your hand first.
There are a lot of other parks out in the Anaheim area.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Sending them to additional parks beyond just.
I did not inquire further. I asked Kelly to come up with kind of a basic number, and she sent me an email with 2 or 3 categories like food, travel, park prices, and didn't itemize it further. So.
Having grown up in that neck of the woods, there's not very long there's a bunch of other things that if you're out there for a week, it could be worth, prompting a little extra to say, hey, break it up, spend a day over here, because none of that would involve needing to come up with different transportation requirements or different where they're staying that night or anything like that. It's all, we're going to drive 45 minutes that way.
Yeah. Well, the way I envisioned it is we suggest or vote up to, say, $3,500 for Nathan and Kelly, and this was my suggestion, that we vote up to $3,500, and they just charge it and expense it, and we reimburse them. And that way, they can mix and match it the way they want to, and we basically just reimburse it. And then really what Dom and Elaine want are plane tickets. We buy the plane tickets, we get them a rental car, a nice one, and and tell them to enjoy their time, because they don't want hustle and bustle. They really just want to go to the lake house and chill. And I'd love to give that to them. So I think between the two, we'd be looking at about $6,000 between the younger Ganino vacation and then whatever Dom and Elaine might spend on their 2 weeks away. I realize that that's kind of bumping up against what we had here, but I would have no problem with writing that like out of our savings account, just keeping that out of parsonage. I think it's a sacrifice worth making. But again, I want this to be our decision. It's a suggestion, and so discussion on that. Yes, Rhonda.
I just think it's a great idea.
Okay, up to 6? Yeah. Anybody else? Daniel?
So I think, you know, if we think about like all the time that they've invested, like if we didn't have Dom and Nathan, think about how much more the Parsonage project would have cost if we had to, you know, hire out, you know, even like a portion of it. And I think, you know, it can sound like a lot, but if you just like put it in the scope of
Mm-hmm.
what it would have been if we didn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going off of what they told me. We could bump it to 6,500, 3,000 for Dom and Elaine, and 3,500 for Nathan and Kelly. Okay. So you guys want to say 6,500? Okay. Yes, Elaine, Danielle.
Money coming out of the budget, this is not a, you don't give, you're not urging us to give a special offering,
Nope. Mm-mm. This is money we're just going to set aside as budget money.
so there won't be a special, if you want to designate something for that.
Can if we want to. This is your adventure. You guys choose it. Yeah, we can give a special offering to it, but I have no problem also just taking out of the general fund. Yes, sir.
This is money left over from what was brought in 2020.
It could be that too. It could be that too.
Well, yeah, this is what we're worried about on this slide, was what can we do with the money that was left over after paying all of our expenses in 2020? So this money technically is there.
Yeah.
In 2022 because it has to do with 2022 income. Well, I don't know, it's one of those.
This could be one of our surplus projects. And Dom and Elaine and Dom and Nathan are going to say, no, we need to put that on the mortgage. And we're saying, no, we're going to spend it on you guys.
And I would just speak for what Elaine has done, which I did not realize at the beginning, just doing a lot of the legwork for Chris and Megan to not have to go and look at 6,000 colors of paint and 1,500 types of tile. Elaine would do all of the hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Bring back to them, within this budget, here's 5 options that match your style, and do this. And I only dealt with Elaine for a little bit for our bathroom, and just seeing how much that was a huge blessing, multiplying that times, you know, a huge house, you know, having to make all this. Elaine was, and I didn't quite realize her involvement until later.
That's right. Okay. Yes, David.
I'm hearing two voices. I'm hearing one voice saying it's coming out of the surplus and one saying it's coming out of the checking.
We could do it out of either. Either we wanted, we could take it out of the surplus, or we could take it out of our checking or savings, whichever we chose. We just put it here because it seemed like the best place to put it. Yeah. 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 Yes, Dirk.
I just, a couple of things, I think God bless us with a very generous surplus, and it makes sense to consider these type of things. And I would agree with, I think Daniel was saying it, the value of what Dom and Elaine and Nathan and Kelly have added to the project far outweighs what we're even considering.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm proposing, my heart is that I think we should give them a lot more, but I'm proposing the max I think they would accept.
We just say you are doing this, and that's just the way,
Nathan,
say use this on a vacation, but if it helps towards
yeah,
something in addition,
yeah,
over and above a vacation, that would be a blessing.
for that too.
Maybe an extra plane ticket for Donna Lang to go, or whatever she has down here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, when Dom and Nathan balked, I reassured them that they're not the boss of me. Yes, Joe. That's what I say. So it's unanimous. Okay. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we set aside $6,500, $35 to go to Nathan and Kelly, $3,000 to go to Dom and Elaine, to be used primarily, but not exclusively, for vacations for their families as a thank you for the sacrifice that they gave to our parsonage project. Do I have a motion? Dirk? Lakin seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed? Okay, Daniel, why don't you go get them? Ben, I'll break the news to them, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Should be very somber when they walk in. One of Pastor Chris's and I's, our favorite things is to frustrate Nathan on the job site. So that if he tells us now on this it has to be really tight, we'll just comment back and forth a bunch of times about how we have to leave room for expansion and contraction, Make sure you leave that, or if he tells us to leave room for expansion and contraction, we brag about how tight that joint was. That ain't going anywhere. Or I'll wait till Nathan is over here and I'll say, do you always hear water running over in this area of the house? It gets him every time. All right, come on in, guys. Come on in. Okay, we took motions and made them without you so that we would make sure it was unanimous, and it is unanimous. Okay, we're going to say more later at our parsonage party, but as a preview, thank you. The amount of time and energy that you guys have invested into our project is not lost on us, and we want to say thank you. We know we can't get you back all the time that you invested, and you view it as sacrificing it to the Lord. You've given it to the Lord, and we would like to give a little back to you. So Nathan and Kelly, we've set aside $3,500 for you to take a vacation to Disneyland and any of the surrounding parks you would like to go to, okay? And what we'd like you to do is you guys just buy it, and we'll reimburse you, okay? Dom and Elaine, we've set aside $3,000 for you guys to do the same. Not to Disneyland, to take a vacation. Please go to Wisconsin, to Andy's lake house, go to Maine or Connecticut or Michigan, wherever you have family. And if you rent a car, rent a convertible, you've got $3,000 to spend, buy your plane tickets, have some family time, rest and enjoy. Okay? So a couple of vacations for you guys as a big thank you. Have fun with the boys. You lost a lot of time with them. So get some of that back, okay? Okay.
Okay, I think that covers surplus. So, David, if you want to go to the next one. Pastoral salary. Chris and Megan are not here, but Greg and Danielle, if you guys would not mind stepping out, we will now talk about you behind your backs and vote on things without you. All right, the door is closed. Can you guys hear me? I can't tell if it's coming out or not, or if I could put this in the right spot. So go ahead to the next one, David. Pastor Greg's is fairly cut and dry. He has looked into some different options as far as trying to qualify for, I believe, Medicaid? I don't remember, Medicaid. And his accountant suggested moving $10,000 out of his salary into his housing allowance because it could qualify as housing allowance, and all of his housing allowance is tax deductible. So $10,000 is going from salary to housing allowance. The deacons have recommended a 9% raise because we went several years without giving Pastor Greg or Pastor Chris any increase in pay. So we're trying to make up for some lost ground there. And then adding a little bit more for ministry expense as well. So if you were confused on the pastoral salary line between 2023 and 2022, it looks like we gave him a little bit of a pay cut, but he hasn't gotten a pay cut. So his total proposed salary is $76,274 for the year. Thoughts, inputs?
Just
Yeah.
a quick question regarding the bathroom remodel.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an advantage tax-wise of, how we pay for that versus giving it to them as housing to pay for the product?
I think,
I'm just
yeah.
wondering if that was considered.
So the church is paying for all those expenses directly, so we're buying all the materials. Through the church funds.
There's no tax.
So they're not paying for anything.
Yeah.
We didn't give them anything for the remodel, the church is just buying.
Right. No, I'm asking, is there an advantage, or was it considered if there is an advantage to give it to
Prob-
them instead, for them to pay for it?
Probably
No,
not.
it's the other way around. If we
Okay.
give it to them, it'd be taxable income.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we could have put it in their housing allowance as well.
Yeah.
Then we would have had to adjust it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just more complicated.
I'm not trying to complicate it, I'm just asking that we do it the best way.
Yeah, I think so. I think the bottom line is either way it would be. If it was under their housing, it'd be tax-free, or if church just does it, it's essentially tax-free, so. Any other thoughts on pastoral salary? Yes, David?
If I remember correctly, Pastor John said that there were like some, that when we had this conversation today, that we would, there was like some reasoning behind, I don't know, the long-term nature of things. I can't remember exactly what it was.
For,
Kind of things that make the decisions behind that. I was curious if,
behind pastoral salary?
yeah, but it's behind the,
Oh, I don't know that there was more other than we were just trying to make up for not having given them raises in the past.
Referring to when we brought some of Pastor Greg's needs
yeah.
to the last business meeting.
I think those were just paid
Yeah,
for,
so-
weren't they?
Well, there was some ongoing, we did mention there was an ongoing nature
Okay.
of pastoral raises, and the ongoing part of that is simply because obviously we have a whole budget to designate how we do ministry. So, obviously, we have more surplus in the budget right now, but when we raise salary, we don't ever want to get ourselves into a position where if our income is really low, that we have to cut salary. So, obviously, we could do a 25% raise and maybe do that this year, but I don't know that that would be stewarding our funds well, and probably not in favor of
Yeah.
so.
And I also think he's in the process of being able to, because there was a number that he had to stay below for his income to be able to qualify for Medicaid, sorry. So being above that number, we don't want to put him over that number, because then that closes that door for him. So I don't know if he's able to qualify currently, or if he knows, or if he's in the process, or what's going to be covered by that or not.
Yeah,
So,
they've already qualified.
okay.
And I was actually already a little concerned because his W-2 amount was slightly over what he gave me that he wasn't worried about.
Okay.
It's like 103% of the poverty level of a family of 7.
Okay. So does that answer your question, David? Or okay. I think bottom line, like Nathan said, we don't want to overcommit. We don't want to put too much in one bucket and then tie ourselves up in another bucket. So that will be part of that quarterly evaluation of if there's surplus, what do we want to do with it, and just keeping that open. So, anything else? Yes, Joe. He had his hand up first. So that is when we voted to give Pastor Greg that $10,000 for tax purposes. He wanted half of it in 22 and half of it in 23, and so that's what that is.
And that would be conversion tax for the 23 is W-2 district current. So that would need to be added to the 39 and still stay below this threshold.
But I think because we pulled that 10,000 out, I don't know that he's close to it. He should still be under it.
Yeah, so that was part of, we moved so much housing over that.
Yeah. And that was
He should still be fine.
also one of those oddball things that came in 22 and is going out in 23. So, but you're right, it's not reflected in that total. So,
Ben, maybe for those who weren't in the previous meeting when we were discussing the baker's needs,
mhm.
They drained their medical escrow account because of medical expenses they incurred. B, Danielle works for her father. He does appraisals. She works on her computer for him. Her own father had to let her go because the market is so poor. And so there were a number of factors that went into realizing that Pastor Greg was very opposed to taking any kind of an increase while we were building the parsonage because he wanted to do everything we can for the Penningtons. And so that's where this proposal is coming from. That we're behind the eight ball a little bit. We know that they've taken a hit on several fronts. And I think in the light of how God has blessed, and that we're still some $20,000 less than what we took in 2022, that this is where that all came to. And I don't know if that helps explain David's question.
It might, David? Yeah. Okay. Can you see if there's anybody watching on live stream right now or not? Okay. I don't want to repeat stuff too much and draw it out if nobody's watching. What? Nobody? Okay. Then. Then I'm not gonna repeat any of that if I don't have to. Okay. All right. Any last thoughts on pastoral salary before we move on to associate pastoral salary? All right. Oh, Matthew.
And I don't know if it matters this year or future years, or if there is that cap number if he wants to stay below to qualify for Medicaid. Is there a tax benefit to having the church own a vehicle that is essentially a company vehicle that the pastor is allowed to use when going about church duties, and then some percentage of that for allowable personal use? That might be some way that we could provide transportation without it having to be something that's taxable for.
Yeah, I don't know. Joe, I know you might be able to speak to this a little better, but I believe all of his travel for ministry-related things is tax deductible, right?
So the pastoral ministry expense line item, that we pay to reimburse expenses like fuel.
Yeah.
You can do it two ways. You can either keep track of actual travel expenses, fuel and maintenance, or do a mileage rate. So I don't know if there's any advantage to the church doing that other than, I'm not proposing this meeting, but if someday we wanted to say church buy a vehicle at the church homes, then, the acquisition of that
Anything else? All right. Next slide, David. You already got it up there? Or no? Not yet. Okay. This one is a little in the weeds, so here we go. Because church was paying, I'm just going to start out with this. Because church was paying rent, right? Church was paying rent to Kathy Stone. Pastor Chris never saw that money. Never mind. We'll just start at the beginning. Okay. So we have planned for Pastor Chris and Megan to be in the house through the end of April. Through the end of April. First 4 months of the year. So we have rent for the first 4 months of the year planned in. And then we've also planned for the mortgage starting in March. Is that correct, Nathan? Does that sound right? So we've got a little bit of overlap between rent and mortgage.
And the mortgage is in a different line.
Yeah, the mortgage is in a different line item. So it looks like we've cut his housing allowance, which we have, but not detrimentally, because he never saw that $750 a month anyway. It was just paid from church. He's currently getting $500 a month as a housing allowance for things like bills and things related to the house. We have moved $150 from his salary into that housing allowance. So his housing allowance is now going to be $650 a month. And yeah, so and then we've removed the rest of the rent from, I guess it would be May on, or not May, the rest of the year, the first 4 months of the year, and that's it. Then we're proposing a 9% raise for him as well, which is based on his overall salary package. I should have said that for Pastor Greg too. That's based on everything that he's getting, package, housing total. So that's kind of broken out there on the bottom. For the total proposed 2023 housing, you've got, or not housing, salary, you've got the housing, which is your 4 months of rent, and then 12 months of $650 a month housing allowance. His salary, plus, which looks like it was, yeah, never mind. It's broken out on the budget handout, not up here. And then ministry expense. I believe we increased that like $200 maybe from the previous year. And also because of the mathematical gymnastics we did to make sure that parsonage numbers for mortgage and still keeping them in the house, it looks like it's a decrease, but as far as take-home pay, it will be an increase. So, clear as mud. All right. Well, do we have to vote on this before they come back in? Do we have to vote on anything, or just if there's no?
This is just some detail to the budget that
Yeah. We haven't voted on the budget yet, right?
Oh, we
Okay.
It's gonna be good open discussion here, see if there's any proposed, this is like part of the proposal.
Yeah. If
I'll just ask him
Mhm.
a tricky question. You know, when we originally took the Bennington zone, we kind of had the goal of someday fully supporting them. Is there I don't know if that was something we can do discussion, if there's a number that we'd like to increase to eventually, or if we can talk with Pastor Chris as far as, what the needs are, maybe that's part-time work as well.
I think, yeah, he's.
We might put those all in there.
I think it's, yeah, because he's still partially employed through Logos, Faith Life. So, and I think he's, as far as like workload for the church, I know he is very careful to not, like he doesn't want to be paid for any more than what there is for him to do. So I think as far as the balance between what he does for church and what he does for his other work,
I think I'm partially asking, have we arrived at that goal that we set out originally? This is the level we'd like to support the Dominicans at, or are we trying to get the Dominican support up at a faster rate than we
So I think the short answer is no. We probably haven't moved any closer to supporting them full-time, but I don't think they're in a bad spot. So, any other discussion / proposals for the pastoral salary for either? Okay. Well, does that mean we can ask Pastor Greg to come back in and he can continue, or do we vote on the budget before he comes back in? I think everybody's sleepy and ready to go home for a snooze, but so, all right. Well, Pastor Dom, do you think we should have Pastor Greg come back in, vote to accept our budget? Okay. All right, Daniel, you want to grab them, and then.
Since he tortured me, it's only right that we torture.
Okay. It's all yours.
Excellent. It was nice to have Danielle with me this year. Usually she has to go home with babies. And so we were able to smooch a little bit in the back while you guys were deciding financial matters. So, okay. So has the budget been voted on? And okay. Well, I don't know what you decided. So will somebody make a motion to reflect what you've decided? Joe, go ahead.
I move that we accept the budget as presented, including the pastoral compensation as presented.
Okay, excellent. Dirk firsts, Benjamin seconds. Okay, and all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
Motion, or I would appreciate as Deacon to have some direction on those surplus projects, one way or the other.
Okay, we will table, if you wouldn't mind tabling that, and we can talk about it because that might take a little. You guys make changes to that. We made changes to that, yes, and so we can talk about that later. And as far as I'm aware, what we discussed was whether we take it out of the surplus or whether we take it out of our savings account. It's all the same as far as you guys, the effect of you guys getting. How we want to divide the pie up is probably what we should talk about. Okay? Okay. Are there any final questions, considerations, or thoughts that you feel need to be shared with the body? We have finished, looks like we might finish before 2 o'clock, which is pretty good, all things considered. Usually we go till a little after 2, so we came in under our usual time, so congratulations on that. Okay, well, do I have a motion to close the annual business meeting? Ben Mack motions. David Bigelow seconds. Make sure we get David on the minutes there. All right, all in favor of closing our annual business meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign? No opposition. All right, if I could just have a few guys volunteer to stick around and help Lindsay break everything down on the back table here. And thank you for the wonderful meeting and the wonderful spirit. Let's pray, and we will all be dismissed. Father, thank you for the unanimous spirit and heart. Thank you for the surplus of funds you've given us. Thank you for the good that it's been to bless others with the surplus that you've provided. And I pray that you would give us yet another prosperous year. More than anything, we want our spirits to be filled with your presence and spirit. And I pray that this would indeed be a year focused on prayer and on recovery. And I pray that you would allow us, before we recover, to finish off the Parsonage project well. For we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's